Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. Hosted by me, Pasitawa Haufano, and my brother.
That's me, Kalolo Haufano.
The Zeducation Podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
As well as tips on leadership and business by some of the top minds and influencers around the world.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast. So, welcome to our Zeducation Podcast. You're joining a conversation with myself, Pasi, and my brother Kalolo here.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, everyone. And on this specific episode, we are going to talk about one of the biggest issues that New Zealand is experiencing at the moment, and that is happening in the workplace as well. And this is the issue of literacy and numeracy, skills that are critical to the success of any business. So let's get into it.
I think it's really good that we're going back into podcasting because it's some of these conversations that we have internally, Pasi and myself, when we discuss these types of topics that are relevant to 2023. And what better way than to provide it on a public platform like our podcasting sessions to create a lot more discussions and let it marinate amongst the listeners that listen to us.
Yeah, a podcast is an amazing channel. It's a way you can reach a lot of people. We have clients who listen to our podcast as well, and it's provided them a lot of value, especially people who listen to it at work and they share it with their teammates. And so even outside of the classroom, we're always looking for ways to help provide value to our audience. So yeah, enjoy the podcast, and hopefully you'll get a lot of great insights in this episode today.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, literacy and numeracy is what we wanted to focus on in today's session. But what is literacy and numeracy? Well, it's to do with reading, writing, computing basic numbers. It's typical skills that you learn at a young age. So primary kids, intermediate, it's foundational skills that they're taught. It becomes much more acute as skills when you're applying it into the workplace. 1 out of 3 Kiwis have low literacy and numeracy skills. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what measures that based on research, but it's very evident that it's a problem that needs to be solved.
And literacy and numeracy, people, for those who are listening, it's not just about reading and writing, and it's not just for schools, and it's not just for kids. Literacy and numeracy is every day of your life, okay? Yes, there are literacy and numeracy skills that are particular or specific to a job or a task or an industry or that career, but these are transferable skills like soft skills, digital skills, and that are transferable in every aspect of your life. You need these skills to just live and cope in normal society.
Yeah, it's a bit of a benefit, right? You kind of learn these skills at the workplace, makes you do your job much more better, therefore creating efficiencies in the organization they work with, but it's also transferable skills that sentimentally impact your life in a positive light.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think it's important to remember that literacy and numeracy is more of a scale, okay? It's not just a tick box. It's not whether you have it or you don't. And it's not just something that you talk about at entry or onboarding of a job or in schools. It is a scale. So on one end of the scale, people who have low literacy and low numeracy skills are probably those ones who struggle to read and write, do emails, speak up in meetings, shy away from upskilling opportunities, who are scared of technology and what it will do to their jobs kind of thing. Like those tend to be people who are on the low literacy and numeracy end of the scale, and they need general upskilling for sure. Then you got the other end of the scale where people who are probably a lot more comfortable in their literacy and numeracy, their reading and writing, email, it's part of their everyday life, but probably need a little bit more upskilling in terms of the technical skills, like how to use a specific software, Microsoft or Excel, for example. So literacy and numeracy touches every aspect of our lives. Everyone needs it. It's just part of how we live and interact with each other every day.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the report that we are going to go through today is a report that just came about a month and a half ago, and it was created by Employer Manufacturing Association. So very big organization here in New Zealand, and their sole focus is to see how they can help understand the trends of what exists in the workplace, not just from an employee side in skills, but also from an employer side as well. And some startling statistics, which I would love to just share with you right now. The biggest one that really stood out from this report is this: the number of businesses and job applicants lacking literacy and numeracy skills has increased significantly since 2022. So this is in 12 months. These statistics have been exacerbated, so the issues become much more acute. Literacy skills was 22% in 2022, and now it's 44%, right? So it's increased, so those that lack those skills. Numeracy, on the other hand, 19% in 2022, 43% in 2023, almost tripled. So it goes to show that it's a problem that's been existing in workplace for a long time, but it's actually worsened over a period of 12 months. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think's driving this?
Well, first of all, I just want to comment and say that is really concerning.
Absolutely.
Because literacy and numeracy is foundational. And, if you don't even have the foundation, your business is on rocky grounds in terms of a workforce, capability point of view. But, if you're talking about a huge significant change within the span of 12 months, it's gone that bad, more than doubled for literacy and numeracy. I don't even want to even guess what the next 12 months would look like if we don't do anything to change it right now. And so, first of all, that is really concerning. And I think one of the things that's probably driving it for me, and you're probably going to mention this, is digital literacy.
Yes, so the main skill that businesses and job applicants were lacking that drove the worst in statistics was digital skills by a whopping 72%.
Doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. The world that we live in, with technology advancing so quickly, if I point the specific, the obvious, is open AI, ChatGPT, and people using that in the workplace now, emails, reports, everything. And that's just one example of how technology is advancing so quickly. And what about the users of the technology? You got the tools that are developing and advancing quickly, but what about the people who are going to use those tools? So based on the report that you've shared, is that we're still behind. So I'm not surprised that the gap has been widened even further because of the advancement of technology.
Yeah, and it's great to see that a lot of businesses became much more self-aware during COVID and realizing the importance of technology. I still think that there's also a bucket of laggards that are behind that and just don't even embrace technology, and it's just super old school paper-based. But and I agree with you, with the change to technology, it's as practical as, okay, let's implement a tech tool that's going to help us become much more efficient in the workplace. Bob's your uncle, let's implement it in the next couple of weeks. That's great. But who's looking after those tech tools? It's those that are using it, and it's the humans. So there needs to be a level of upskilling these humans that will help them utilize these tools to become much more efficient. So there needs to be this level of matrimony. And I think that's what's really driving these statistics, in my opinion.
Especially when there's change management. Change management is about people. So when you introduce any form of change, any form of restructure, whether it's in the role or the process, the goals, objectives, whatever it is, you always have to consider the people side of that change. People respond to change differently. There are those who resist. There are those who aren't competent enough, but might have the motivation and drive to change, but don't know how to. Just remember that especially with introducing new technology, you have to think about the people side of that change as well.
And there's a bit of a catch-22 here. Employers need to solve two things: a labor shortage, right? In the same report, it shows that employers, like 75% of employers, so 3/4 of employers have posted up job vacancies, and in 6 months, of space of 6 months, they're still not filling these roles. And secondly is the upskilling of staff in the workplace. So it's the skill shortage. So not just the labor shortage, but the skill shortage getting into the workforce. So there's a bit of a catch-22. And I think what a lot of employers are doing right now is trying to solve the labor shortage by going global, going overseas. I mean, you can only exhaust to a certain extent the labor supply here in New Zealand, but going overseas with the new policies that are a bit more lenient in immigration that allows more people to come in with those particular skill sets, particularly from Asia. I think a large portion are being pushed from Asia, and that umbrella of Asia is also India. But also strategizing and helping those that are currently in their workforce be upskilled to the particular skills that they need to become much more productive in the workplace?
It's a very good point, and I think I'm glad you brought that up. There is a shortage of workers, like people not applying for the jobs, for example. And even if you do find them, most likely they're not skilled enough. So businesses are just getting, on a scale of good, better, and best, they're gone with just a good option. Because there is no best option out there, and the good option is the good enough option is just to put a bum on a seat for now, and then we'll just invest in upskilling them. But for me, in my opinion, regardless whether you import the skills from overseas or whether you import them locally, there's still a level of upskilling, and I think upskilling should be part of everyday BAU or part of the work culture. In any business, like it should be, for me, it's like going to the gym, right? Like you go to the gym consistently, you have to go consistently in order to keep yourself fit and strong and healthy. And it's the same thing with skills. If you want to maintain and sustain it and grow those skills of your people, it's like going to the gym. You've got to do it consistently. It has to be ongoing. You have to figure out a way to retain that skill and make it get better over time.
Yeah, ongoing and long term, right? True strategy at an organizational level should focus on the forecast of 3, 5, 10 years and what that looks like as embedding in your vision and mission of your business. From an L&D perspective, it's not a short-term thing, right? It's number one, you need to cultivate a learning environment culture for your employees to really feel safe to learn and to upskill in the workplace. But it's not just the employees. It's not just one-way street. The employees also need to have a desire and a level of self-awareness to embed that type of environment as well.
Yeah, and I think it starts with the leaders. It starts with the employees themselves, right? Like they could be the make it or break it part of the strategy when it comes to training their staff. There are some employers who have the right mindset and they see it as less of a liability but more investment. For their people. It won't just improve their business and help them do better in their jobs, but also help them do better in their lives. That they have heart and they place people at the heart of the organization, and they know that. Whereas some businesses who haven't quite caught that vision yet. And so I think there's those things to take into consideration. It does start with the leaders. No training or greatness can touch your workforce unless the leaders make room for it. Okay, so maybe let's change gear here a little bit and talk about what can employers do, or L&D, HR, whoever looks after the training development, whoever signs off on it. What do they need to consider, or what are some things they can apply to help upskill their staff in terms of literacy and numeracy?
Two things come to mind for me. I think the first one is businesses need to have a desire to solve a problem. So I think it's twofold. So it's like have a desire to know that you need to upskill your people in the workplace and figure out what problems there are that it's just making things much more of an issue for you in your business. So once you get that locked and loaded, then the second part is an internal audit. It's not to say go and audit like a typical audit to pry on what's not working, but it's more of an analysis or a needs analysis. So that requires that, okay, if these are your problems or you want to solve those problems, what are those specific problems for us to build a program from? So that may come in the form of surveys with your employers, your employees, and any other important stakeholders in your business that have an important say to this. From there, collect that information, that data, and analyze it and really understand, okay, here are the key problems that are existing in our frontline or overall in the business. Let's upskill in these problems.
Good tips. And I think from my end, what employers need to consider is the long-term game. Is when you're thinking about training your staff, don't think short-term, don't think 10 weeks, don't think quarter. Think 1 year, think 2 years, think 3 years, like that strategy. And, for me, I believe learning should be ongoing. If you want to maintain the strength of you and skill of your workforce and to grow it, you need consistency, and consistency is achieved over a long-term plan, a consistent plan. But I think long-term, and then also the other part I will talk to is once you've got your training plan, think about how you're going to roll it out. Think about your employees. How do you get them on board with this awesome training program that you've got for them? You know that it's there for a reason. You've built it based on your data, and you know it's going to work with the hopes it will. How do you get your staff into the classrooms or into the training space and participating and getting the most out of these training programs? So think about that. Think about how will you roll it out? How will you get them on board? How will you inspire them? What's in it for them? Because a lot of employees think, if I do this program, will I still get paid, or will I get a micro credential or a certificate at the end of it? Will I be recognized? You've got to think about it from their point of view.
Yeah, I think of, if I go back to what you said around like making sure you get buy-in from your employees, from other clients that we've had, they've had us, the educational provider, go in and really share with them these awesome educational programs. So that's also another alternative as well to helping get that buy-in from your staff.
Yeah, if you can find a training provider who can really work with you, like Zeducation can help, but if you can find a training provider that you can partner up with, an ideal one would be one who can do the whole thing, who can really come in and help you do an audit, figure out what you need, help you build a training program, and have got the capacity to deliver those training to your staff and onboard them into the program, get their buy-in, do those info sessions, go into those toolbox meetings and talk to the team about the program and why they should do it. Right the whole thing, right up to the graduation and right up to the rollover to the next part of the module or program within your training strategy. So if you can find a training provider that can do that, that just takes a lot of pressure and workload off of you.
Yeah, and I think with these tips that we've just shared with you, it really helps with having an ambulance at the top of the cliff. I think, all too often we come across people who need programs because there are problems that are existing. That's great. Let's go ahead and solve that. But strategically, as you embed in a model in your business around upskilling your staff, then you're not being reactive, but proactive in making sure that anyone that comes into your workplace is upskilled and solves the overall gap of skills that is pervasive in all of industries in New Zealand.
100%. And I think another thing that you need to look at, especially if you're part of a team, maybe you're not the decision maker, maybe you're the influencer, and you're very creative, you're very passionate about creating a project to upskill your staff. There's a level of onboarding that's required with your leaders above you, and the employee is one part. But your leaders is another. So you have to think about them. How can you help them capture the vision or believe and support the project to upskill, your workforce's literacy and numeracy skills? So, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to set something up or to set, a successful literacy and numeracy program up. So, if you need some support in that area, definitely reach out to us. We can help with the whole thing from beginning to end. So, we try and make it as easy and efficient as possible for you. Because at the end of the day, we care about the same thing as you. And that's helping your people, our people, the same people we care about, to not only do well in their jobs, but also in their lives.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point to end off with. The problems are very clear. The report is very clear on the problems that need to be solved, and it's the literacy and numeracy skills. And the only way to solve that is cultivate a culture in your business of learning and upskill them with educational programs.
Thank you for joining us.